Well, welcome everybody to session number 3 of Successful Secrets to Becoming a Paid Working Actor or Model, Commercial Model, with Aaron Marcus. This is session number 3, like I said, and this is the session that's really going to delve into the marketing aspect of things. And Aaron, man, am I excited to hear what you've got to share with us now, because this is the heart and soul of getting work as an actor or model, and I'm excited to hear what you've got to say. So, take it away, Aaron.
Great. Okay, so just to kind of wrap things up, you're going to be practicing putting together the right photos, finding the right people in the industry. Now you're going to be learning about the business of the business. So for marketing yourself, you've got to be able to create a cover letter, and I mentioned that earlier. You'll see it on page 47 in the book, but essentially you're going to let people know what you want from them. And here's a little suggestion. I saw somebody else do this and I thought it was a great idea, so I borrowed their idea. When you're writing your cover letter, why don't you take your headshot and scan it so that it is sitting on top of your letter? So like for instance, if this is your letter, maybe have your headshot sitting right up here, your name is up here, your headshot, and then contact information can be down there. And that way, as they're reading your cover letter, they can also see you. And there's something else. I mean, one of the reasons why I love doing the workshops is that I normally learn quite a bit from other people who are attending the workshop. And I was doing a seminar in Florida, and this woman told me about something that I simply didn't know about. So I'll share it with you. When you're putting together a resume, you're going to have your information, and the same with the cover letter. You're going to have your contact information. And what some people are a little concerned about is putting their personal cell phone number on all of their contact information, whether it's a resume, on their composite sheet, or on their cover letter. And they told me about Google Voice. And what you can do is it's pretty amazing, and it's free. You can go to googlevoice.com and you can find a free phone number. Doesn't cost anything. And what you do is you use this number in all of your marketing. And you can have that phone number linked to either a cell phone number or your home phone number, whatever phone number you typically use. So basically somebody calls the Google Voice number and it will ring on another phone line. So that way you don't have to give out your personal phone number to the world, which I thought was pretty neat. For photographers, you're going to be sending out your composite sheets because like I said, sometimes they're the ones who make the decision. Sometimes it's the art or creative director at the advertising agencies. Sometimes it's the client or everybody in between. Then you've got the art and creative directors, and I told you about them, and you can send them your headshot and or composite sheet. Here's some other ways of trying to look for work. There's Mandy.com. On my website, I mentioned this at the very beginning of the day, on my forum, I will post information that I hear about, and I ask other people share that information as well. So if you hear about an audition and go see your job, please post it there. Now, there's also Craigslist, and some of you might be familiar with it, especially if you've ever tried to sell furniture or appliances, but they also have something called the Gigs link. I know people who've had some real success with going to Craigslist. Let me just mention this and make this very, very clear. You've got to be really careful. You have no idea who you're potentially working with. So if there is a photographer who is posting on Craigslist about a job or doing test shots, check out the photographer's website. Make sure it's showing the kinds of images that you think are good and ones that you're comfortable with. The other thing too is, look, if you wind up going to a photo shoot or an acting job that you got through Craigslist, make sure you bring somebody with you, preferably somebody large. Make sure people know exactly where you are. Give them your phone number so you can call friends just to say everything's cool. Look, and I know I hate to sound so alarmist, but there are some wacky people out there, and you got to be careful. But I know people who've gotten radio commercials, modeling jobs, other acting jobs. So anyhow, those are great places to check out. I mentioned before, and I was going to tell you about it, and here it is. It's a model release form, and I have this on page 74 in my book, so you can see the entire release form. At the end of every modeling job, you should be asked to sign a model release form by the photographer. And essentially what this says, it's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo stuff. And this also holds true if you are a parent of a minor. You are the one that needs to sign it because it's a legal document. And essentially what this says is that you are giving the photographer permission to use your image or your child's image in this ad. And you've got to sign it, because without your permission, you could be up on billboards throughout North America, and if you don't like the way your eyebrows look, you can say, hey, take it down. I didn't give you permission. And they'd have to remove it. So they need for you to sign the model release form. But here's the problem. In every model release form, you're going to find either these exact words or very similar words. I put them in yellow here in my book. I put them in bold so you can see them. It will say that they can use your image made through any media or for any other purpose whatsoever. And they can't. I mentioned earlier, your agent negotiated a fee based on its usage. And if it's running in a high exposure format, you should be getting paid more money for that. So here's how you deal with it, because I can guarantee you when you're on a set, almost every model will get the model release form and just sign it and hand it in. The issue that comes up is if you sign it as is without making the changes that I'm about to tell you about, and your agent told you this was going to run in a newspaper ad, and you sign it, and then the company decides, you know what, we'd love the shot. It's bringing in a lot of business for us. We want to put it on the company's website. We want to put it up on billboards. We want to use your image as a still picture as part of a television commercial for this product. You just gave it away. You should have gotten more money because it's in a high exposure format. So the way that you protect yourself is when you find these words that says it can be made through any media for any purpose whatsoever, scratch the words out. And you're going to write in there very specifically how your agent said the ad will run. For newspaper only, for magazine only, for brochure only. Then you initial it, then you sign it at the bottom. That is how you protect yourself. So that way, if the company decides, they love this brochure and now they want to use it, in a poster or on the side of a bus, now they have to renegotiate with your agent. So not only are you protecting yourself, you're also protecting your agent, because your agent is going to be getting a percentage of whatever that bonus is as well. Now, sometimes people have asked me, well, what happens if the photographer freaks out? What happens if the photographer starts saying, what are you doing? You can't make a change. Here's how I handle that. And it's only happened to me twice in my life. What I do is I do not negotiate. I do not try to explain to the photographer, what I'm doing, simply because that's not my job. I want to maintain a really good relationship with this photographer. I want this photographer to love my work, hire me again and again and again. So my strategy is this. I play dumb, and I just say, look, I'm sorry, my agent said that she would kill me if I signed things as is. Do me a favor. Call my agent, and whatever my agent wants me to do, I'll do. That's how I handle it. Let your agent deal with this issue. Now, there are some agents, especially in larger markets, not all, but there are some agents who will already have this form filled out for you ahead of time, and they will fax it or email it over to the photographer. Most of the time, I have to deal with it myself. So when the photographer is talking with the agent, one of two things will happen. There are some agents that will battle. with the photographer. Say, well, of course, this change needs to be made. You know, you can't use this for any purpose and through any media. It's being used for this specific area. This is how I negotiated it. Well, that's great. The other thing that could happen is that, especially in smaller secondary markets, an agent might have a very good working relationship with a photographer. And that photographer might hire a lot of models from that agency. And she doesn't want to anger the photographer. She wants this photographer to continue to book a lot of her talent. In which case she might say to you, look, just sign it as is. Don't worry about it. Don't make any changes. It's not necessary. And in which case I wouldn't be happy about that, but I understand it, and I would go along with it, and I would just hope that I don't lose money in that kind of situation, because I really do. I pick and choose my fights very carefully, and I would let that one go. But anyhow, that's the model release form, and like I said, I can guarantee you almost every model on the set will sign it as is. And I was just in that situation fairly recently, and all of a sudden my ad is ending up in places that it wasn't supposed to, and so I contacted the agent, and that's how you handle that. A voucher. A voucher is your invoice, and every agency has their own voucher. And typically it's a 3 color-coded sheet of paper, and you have 3 different sections to it that it's all the same. They're like carbon copied. So you fill out this information. It will have, as you can see, you know, who's being invoiced, the model, the photographer, the booking date. It also, you'll be signing it at the bottom. Whoever is paying or being invoiced for the job will sign it as well. You keep a copy. Whoever is signing it, whoever's paying for the job, they get a copy, and then your agent gets a copy. A couple of tricky things with vouchers. One is get your voucher into your agent as soon as possible, because that's what starts the billing process. And like I said earlier, it can take up to 90 days to get paid for a job. If you don't live near the agent, you can fax it to the agent, or you can try to scan it and email it. Or the best case scenario, if you can, drop it off in person. Now, agents typically don't like models or actors just walking into their office and sitting down and talking with them, just like they don't like phone calls, you know, all throughout the day. Hey, just wanted to check in, how are you doing, and that kind of stuff. Just as a little note, with agents, when you're working with an agent, ask them how they want you to contact them. Sometimes they'll say, you know, check in with me once a week with an email, call me once a week, call me once a month, don't ever call me, send me a letter, send me a post. However they want you to stay in touch with them, that's how you should do it. But it's really important to stay in touch with your agent to make sure your agent knows that you're still there. So with a voucher, that's a great excuse to go into your agent's office. That's a very legitimate reason to go into your agent's office. And when you do go in there to drop off the voucher, you're accomplishing a couple things. One, like I said, you're starting the billing process, which is great. And you are also, in a very subtle way, reminding the agent that you are making the agent money. You are successful. You are booking jobs. They should continue to send you out. You are on that A list. So if you can, drop off the voucher in person if possible. This also is very helpful, and this, well, I guess we'll find out if it saved me or not, because I'm in the middle of a little bit of a battle right now. What I do is I've got, and I do it in an old-fashioned way. I don't know why I don't do it as an Excel spreadsheet, because I do that with so many other things, but I've just always done it this way. I've got a little 3-ring binder, and in that 3-ring binder, I list every job that I do that year, and I've got the date, I've got the name, the type of job, who the agent was, if it's a commercial, who the advertising agency was. I'll even have the makeup artist. If it's a modeling job, I'll have the name of the photographer. And basically, what I'm able to do is I keep a really good record of all the jobs that I've had that year. And then when I get that voucher, along with putting the information in that little booklet, I also have a little plain envelope, just a little business envelope, and it will say on the outside of the envelope, Vouchers 2011. And I will take this voucher, drop it into that envelope. Then in my calendar, 90 days from the day of the shoot, I'll make a little note, should be paid for, and I'll list, the agent, the product, the advertising agency, just so that way, if I haven't gotten paid within those 90 days, I can contact the agent and I've got all the information there. Then, when I get paid for the job, I will take that voucher that's in the Voucher 2011 envelope, and I will write on there, paid in full, and date it. Then take it and place it in Paid Vouchers 2011. There are a lot of models who, once they get paid for their job, they throw their vouchers away because they figure, I don't need it anymore, I've already gotten paid. Here's the problem, and this is what I just ran into recently, and it has not been resolved yet. Let's say you did an ad, and it was supposed to run for 12 months, and that's written on your voucher. That's one of the pieces of information on the voucher. Booking date, period of use. So you're going to write in there for 12 months. And somebody calls you. Matter of fact, in this situation that came up for me, there was somebody who was taking a train in New York, and they took a picture on their cell phone of a poster that I did for a hospital. And they said, hey, I just saw you in here, you look great. And they sent it to me. And I thought about it, and I thought, I did that one a little while ago. Let me go look that up. So I went to my 3-ring binder, looked up the date of the shoot, noticed when it was, went into my paid vouchers, because I found the year of when that took place, opened up the voucher, and it said 12-month usage. And this was, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years later. Well, I've got proof. I've got the photo itself, so I know that it's really me. And I've got the voucher in front of me that's showing exactly how long it was supposed to run, and it's past its usage. So, or not usage, but the time period of when it was supposed to run. So I contacted the agent, and now the agent is trying to get in touch with the photographer or advertising agency, I'm not sure who, so that we can both get paid. If the voucher was thrown away, I would have no idea how long it was going to run, and typically agents don't hold on to those vouchers for all that long. So never throw your vouchers away. They can be really, really helpful to you. Okay, let's talk a little bit about resumes. Here's the most important part of a resume. Be honest. Don't lie on your resume. And there are people, and I've heard some horror stories from casting directors who brought somebody in to read for a part, and they're looking at their resume, and in this one in particular, the casting director's husband directed a play, and she knew everybody in the cast. And this actor walked in, and I guess the actor was figuring, really, who's going to know if I did this play or not? And he had it listed. And as it turns out, it was this woman's husband's play that he directed, and she knew that he wasn't in it, and he lied, and she kicked him out. And she said, I know you weren't in this play. He didn't fight it because he knew he was lying about it, and she said, you're never going to be able to audition for me again. So don't lie on your resume. It's not necessary. It's also not a good way to run your business. And here's the crazy thing about resumes. And I'm not saying that they're not important. Of course they are. If you graduated and you got a master's degree from a very prestigious acting school, yeah, that's going to open up doors. People will take you seriously. They know you've gotten, some amazing training, a lot of on-stage experience. But that doesn't book the job for you. That will open up doors. And there are people that have very little experience on their resume, and they could book the job over somebody who has gotten a master's degree from a great program. Because the most important part to an audition has nothing to do with your skills, has nothing to do with your resume or experience. It is strictly your look. Now, just to make sure you know, this resume is only for your acting headshot. Models don't use resumes. You do not have any kind of resume on a composite sheet. They don't really care how many jobs you've done. They just want to see your photos. So for an acting resume, you've got the headshot on the front and the resume on the back. And the resume needs to be cut down to 8 by 10. That's the size of a headshot. So a regular piece of paper is larger than that. So make sure you cut it down. And like I said, personally, I like to staple all four corners. Some people will print their resume onto the back of a headshot, which you can do. You just have to be very careful it doesn't smear. Sometimes that happens. I don't like gluing resumes on the back. It's messy. It creates wrinkles sometimes. It's very time consuming. And if it's sitting in a folder at an agent's office or a drawer and it's hot in there, it could become separated. So personally, I like to staple all four corners. Some people talk about stapling the top and the bottom, so that way people can make notes on the back if they need to during an audition. But personally, I like to staple all four corners. So number one, be honest and understand that your resume doesn't get you the job. So even if you really haven't had that much experience, that's okay. People understand, you've got to start somewhere. So you're going to have your name on there, and you'll have a first and last name. Also, this is assuming you don't have an agent. You'll have your contact information, and once again, you can use your regular cell phone, home phone number, whatever you want to use, or the Google one. You can put an email address, if you would like. Once again, sometimes people set up special email addresses just for the industry. So if somebody, gets a hold of your headshot, you might not want them, sending stuff to your regular email address. Because sometimes you can go to an audition and your headshot gets thrown away at the end of audition and you just have no idea who's going to pick it up. So then for your personal information, you're going to have your height. I mean, personally, I would just stick with, inches. I mean, with feet. In the States, we haven't really learned how to do centimeters very well. And same with if you're talking about weight. I would just stick with pounds. For age, you don't have to put age. The only time that age is really important, or you put date of birth, if you're a minor or you are somebody who is not a minor but you can play a minor, so that way they know that, because that's very helpful. If you can play a minor but you're an adult, then TV show producers and film producers, they love you because when you are a minor, you can only work a certain amount of hours a day, and you have to have tutoring on sets for schools and things like that. So if you're older and you can play a younger kid and they don't have to deal with child labor laws and things like that, that's great. So in that sense, it might be helpful. This is a woman's resume that she put together. Bust size, you don't have to put that in there. On a composite sheet, it's helpful for people to know your sizes. That's strictly for wardrobe. So if you do book the job and they have to go out and buy a dress, get a suit, buy pants or shoes or a blouse, they know what sizes, but I wouldn't put that into an acting resume. For hair, what some people say is, look, assuming you've got a color headshot, people should be able to see it. Still, sometimes putting hair color on the back is helpful, so that way when they flip it over and they're looking, they don't have to go back and forth and see what the color is. And same with eyes. You can put eye color. Something that I like to do on the back of my resume, once again, I borrow this from somebody else's that I saw. I will put the either the same headshot or a different headshot right in the corner, right up here. So that way, as they're looking at your resume, they can still see your face. For the For the education, I mean, typically you're going to put that at the bottom of your resume. Basically, what I'm going to show you here is you're going to see this resume that somebody sent to me, and somebody who I did a private consultation with, and then you'll see how it got redone in a much better fashion. So you're going to put the education at the bottom. Performance experience, you're not going to label it that way. You'll just put theater, if that's something that you did. And she just had like long lists that went over a couple of pages, and you don't want to do that. Everything has to be on one single page. I mean, this woman has had a tremendous amount of experience, but you're not going to have 2 or 3 pages of a resume. And for other skills, you're going to have special skills, and these are skills that really make the casting director's life easier in ways that you could potentially be cast for a project. So basically, here is the before and after, and here is the after. So I like the idea of having the photo up here. You're going to have first and last name. If you are a member of a union, put that here, and here's all the other contact information. Here it's nice and it's simple and it's clean. You've got hair, eye, weight, and height, and it's all stated right here. You've got theater, and you're going to put the name of the play, the character, and where it was done. Whoops. And you also, for TV and radio spots, what you want to do is, if you've done any commercials, you do not want to list them. And if you've never done any commercials, this is also a better way of putting it. You're going to write on here, list available upon request. Because I can just tell you, nobody has ever asked me how many commercials have I done, what commercials have I done. All they want to know is, do you currently have any conflicts running? That's all they want to know. So anyhow, that sounds much better. If you've done film, you can put the name of the film, what kind of role you had, because if they're not familiar with the movie, if you just put a character name, that's not going to really mean anything. But if you tell them the importance, were you the lead? And then you can put either a director's name, or you can put the studio name. That's helpful. Special skills. Now this one I thought was interesting. She's a certified bartender. It's called an RSA, and she was working in Australia. She lives in the States. She's a U.S. citizen. And the reason why I thought that would be helpful, if she's doing a commercial and they're casting for a bartender, they're going to know she's a licensed bartender. And the other thing too is, I thought it might be an interesting conversation point for somebody. If they're sitting down with you, they're quickly looking over your resume and they go, "Oh, RSA licensed bartender. Well, what was that? Oh, you lived in Australia," and all of a sudden you can start, having a conversation. And I think that was interesting. But the other things that she has in here, she's an athlete. It's basketball, softball, swimming. For the swimming, she made it more specific so people know that she really knows what she's talking about. Breaststroke freestyle. For singing, she put down very specific, what type of singing she does. And a tour guide. I thought that was interesting too. She does tours with New York. Once again, maybe there's a movie and that's what they're casting for, and they can see that. And then for education, you can see what she has down here. So it's I thought that really transformed what she had into a really nice, clear kind of resume. And this is something that I did. And you'll notice here, I put co-star, for these, because that was, instead of just putting, Dr. Barnes for a Law and Order, because people aren't, unless you are a Law and Order fanatic and really know every character in there, you're not going to know that. So anyhow, it's just nice and clear. Okay, preparing for an audition. And by the way, any questions at all about resumes? Okay, good. Okay, so preparing for an audition. There are many things that you can do to prepare for an audition. The very first thing is, if you get a phone call, let's say it's for a feature film from an agent. First thing I would do is ask the agent, who is the director? And the reason why you want to know who the director is, not so that you can become even more nervous than you possibly already are, because it's a well-known director, but what you want to do is a little research. And you want to be familiar with the style of the director. So, like for instance, when I auditioned for an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and he was the guy who directed The Sixth Sense, he wrote and directed Sixth Sense, Lady in the Water, The Village, um, quite a few other projects. I made sure that I was very familiar with his work. And actually, I'd already seen Sixth Sense, so I knew about it. And I learned that for all of the films, there were certain styles for the actors. Um, Everything was very inward. Um, what you showed in your eyes, I mean, this information just shot out, but there was nothing big, nothing over the top, very condensed. And one of the ways that you can find out about the directors, if you go to IMDb, it's Internet Movie Database, imdb.com, and just type in the director, and you'll find tons of work that this director has done. And then what I would do is, like, you don't have to go out and rent every movie this person has been involved with, but what you're going to do is maybe you can find clips online, maybe you can rent one of the movies, just so you get a sense of that. If it's a television show that you're auditioning for, make sure you watch the show. You've got to be very familiar not only with the different characters, so you know who you're going to be reading with, but also the style. There are some shows are more slapstick, over the top. Sometimes people talk very quickly, sometimes people talk very slowly. So you want to be familiar with it. So then you walk into the audition. Now, sometimes you will be able to get the sides ahead of time. The sides are a short portion of the script. If it's a film, it's the short portion that you're going to be reading. Unless you are a very well-known actor, they're not going to hand you the script ahead of time. They haven't written the movie with you in mind. Once again, unless you're pretty well known. So most of the time, like I said, sometimes I can get the sides ahead of time. Most of the time, I show up at the casting office, and that's where I'll see either the copy, if it's a TV commercial, or the sides. So I'm going to read through the sides. That's the very first thing. And I want to be familiar with the words, with the terminology. Certainly I want to ask questions about if there are any words I don't understand. And unfortunately, that I might not be able to do until I actually walk into the room. If there are any words I can't pronounce. But everything else I'm going to be doing outside the casting office. And typically what I do is I kind of go hide. Some people are pretty good at coming in, picking up sides, kind of schmoozing with everybody, making small talk, and then going in and doing a very good read. I can't. And so, when I'm there, I isolate myself, and I'm doing my preparation. So, and if somebody does come over to me, and they want to engage me in a conversation, I'm very nice about it. I just go, I got to look at this stuff right now. Can we talk later? That's how I handle it. So I've read everything through. I read not only my lines, but everybody else's lines in the scene, because what I find is that a lot of times it's the other person's lines that says so much about my character and tells me a lot about who I am. So you want to be very familiar with the other person's lines as well. And then the first question I ask is, who is this scene about? And typically, unless it's a small or it's an independent film, it's not about me. It's about somebody else. And what I'm doing is I am there to help support the star or support other major characters in this project. And that's really important to understand, so that when you're doing your read, it makes sense. There was a time I had an opportunity, it was great, to work with a casting director, and I was the reader. And a reader is the person that the actor reads to at the audition. And there was an actor who walked in, and I'm kind of smiling because it was very clear this person didn't have a clue as to what he was doing. This guy was reading for the part of a bartender. And the guy comes in, and the guy had one line. His line was, what would you like to drink? That was his line. And instead of understanding that he was supporting the star of this project who sits down at his bar, and that's really what the scene is about, he thought, you know what? I want to show the casting director, and who eventually, eventually the director who's going to see my audition, I want to show them how good I am and how powerful of a read I can make. And he delivered his lines to me like this. So what would you like to drink? Now, this is silly. It's ridiculous. The way the line should be read is, all right, what would you like to drink? That's it. That's all there is to it. You are helping support somebody else in this scene. And, this guy wasn't considered at all for it. So figure out, who is the scene about? And if it's not about you, make sure you're not trying to steal the scene. There's also something called the 5 W's. Who, what, where, when, why. And I always ask and answer those questions, those 5 W's, for any material that I'm working on. So the first one is, who are you talking to? That's a very, very important question. Now, if you're reading for a film, and once again, you have no idea what's going on in this project, and you're reading with, a character by the name of Mary. Well, if you don't know who Mary is, that's an essential question to ask the casting director. What is my relationship to Mary? Is Mary my wife? Is she a girlfriend? An ex-girlfriend? Is she my girlfriend's girlfriend who I really like? Somebody who I've always wanted to date but never had the nerve to ask? Is Mary my mother? I mean, who? Who is she? Because depending on who she is in your life, it will dramatically change the way you do your read. So it is crucial that you ask that of the casting director. What is my relationship to Mary? So that's, who are you talking to? What are you talking about? Now, hopefully that will be very clear in the copy that you're reading. Where is this scene taking place? And the reason why that's important is for every audition that you do. And by the way, auditions are really difficult. They're hard. Auditions, that's the work. That is really the work. When I am booked on the job, that is vacation for me. But doing the audition, a lot of times we are basing our ideas on very little information. And so you're kind of flying blind in some sense. And all you can do is take a stand. It might be the right direction. It might be the right type of read. It might not be. But hopefully, if, number one, you look right for the part and you do an interesting read, that should be enough to get you called back. And then once you get the call back and you're reading now for the director or a bunch of other people, then they'll give you more specific information. But as far as the where, you want to create the scene during the audition. So if I am doing this scene and I am talking to somebody in my kitchen, so the kitchen is the where. It's going to sound very different because that person is probably sitting about 2 feet from me. That's going to be very different than if the scene is taking place on Fifth Avenue in New York and we're walking down the street and cabs are, beeping their horns and it's just unbelievably loud and people are talking and so it's going to have a very, very, very different feel to it. And you want the casting director to believe that you are there. So that's the who, what, where, and then you've got when. When is this taking place? Now, is this taking place at 10 o'clock in the morning, or is it happening at 4 o'clock in the morning? Once again, if it's 10 o'clock or 10:30, it might not be that big of a difference. But if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I know I'm probably going to be talking a lot differently than if it's 10 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's the way I'm going to be feeling at 4 in the morning. And then why? Why are you saying this to this person? You've got to have a reason. And I can tell you, the more specific you answer those 5 W's, the more interesting of a read it's going to be. Sometimes when I've done consultations with people and they're working on a monologue, and I will ask them, who are you talking to? And they'll say, well, I'm talking to people. Well, that's not real specific. And because of that, it makes their monologue sound pretty generic. So the more specific you answer those questions, the more interesting it is. And I can also tell you a couple other things about the auditions. One is, at the end of the audition, no matter how you felt about the audition, whether you thought it was great, whether you thought you were horrible, it really doesn't make any difference. You need to walk out of there like you gave the greatest performance of your life. You're proud of your audition. And you walk out, thank you very much. And you walk out. And when I walk into the audition, I walk in there with this kind of attitude. Now, internally, I might be scared to death, but they're not going to see it. What I'm showing the casting director, I'm comfortable, love doing this, happy to be there, no matter how miserable of a day or a drive it was. I just had this audition, and I was in the worst traffic I've ever experienced in my life. What should have been an hour drive was 2.5 hours. Fortunately, I gave myself plenty of time because I knew that traffic could be bad, and it was bumper to bumper for hours, and I was miserable. And I walked into that audition, the casting director goes, hey, how you doing? Great to be here. Because they don't want to hear it. They really don't. You know, they've been seeing a lot of people throughout the day. They don't want to hear somebody complain and moan about, oh man, the traffic was hard. They don't want to hear that stuff. And I also have the attitude of a lot of confidence. You know, hey, if I book this job, that's wonderful for me. You know, that'd be fun. And if I don't book the job, that's great too. That's okay. You know, I'll book something else. That's the kind of attitude you want to exude when you walk into a casting, because you really do not want to show any kind of desperation. They can smell that stuff a mile away. And if they're seeing somebody who looks desperate, who looks nervous, who looks scared, you're going to scare them off. You know, they don't want to hire somebody that they can't trust. So going in with that kind of attitude is very, very, very crucial. And the other thing that I do, and maybe this will be helpful to you as well as far as dealing with nervousness, is my goal for every job, for every audition, I should say, is not booking the job. That's number 3 on my list. My number 1 goal is I want to have a good time. Now, like for instance, for that audition on Thursday, I only had about 2 minutes in there for the audition. It was fun. I did exactly what I wanted to do, felt right to me, did not get a call back. They had no interest in me. And sure, it's disappointing. You know, I would have loved to have gotten at least a call back, but it was clear for whatever reason, I wasn't right for this particular commercial. And that's okay with me. And so by not having the end goal as the job, it also takes some of the pressure off. So I want to enjoy myself. That's my number 1 goal. 2, I want to learn from the experience. And there are times where I walk out of an audition and I think, because I'll analyze it and I'll think, you know what? I did everything that I wanted to do. Felt right to me. It was a good day at work. And I've also come to learn that, you know, doing a great audition and booking a job, sometimes those are very, very different things. And there are just so many factors that go into getting the job and not getting the job. You know, you could give the greatest audition in the world and maybe you're too tall, maybe you're too short, maybe your body is not good enough, maybe the woman who's playing your wife has already been cast and you don't look like you belong to her. And if you are a teenager and you're auditioning, maybe your read was the absolute best, but the parents have already been cast and you don't look like you belong to the parents. So there are just so many factors involved with that. And I'm not saying that sometimes it's, you know, it's your acting skills that aren't getting you the job. Of course, that's a possibility too. But, you know, there are plenty of people who go to auditions that could do the job, and then they've got to choose one person for that particular role. So anyhow, I'll analyze it. And sometimes I'll walk out and I'll think, you know, I wish I had done this, 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 and this. You know, that would have made it a better one. Or darn it, I forgot about doing this one. And I'll make a note of it and hopefully I can incorporate it next time around. And then the third thing is, you know, like I said, if I happen to book the job, that's icing on the cake. And for me, that helps take some of the pressure off. It really does. And I also have this overall thought, and I know everybody has different ways of viewing this stuff. I'm not a negative guy. I mean, I don't walk around thinking, oh, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. But when I do go to an audition, I typically think I'm probably not going to get the job. And it's not because I don't think I have any skills or I'm just, you know, downplaying everything. Look, I just realized there are a lot of people who could probably book it. And like I had a go-see in New York it was last week, and they were looking for a doctor. And they probably saw over 100 people. So, I mean, really, the chances of me booking that thing are pretty slim. So I'm not negative. I'm just being realistic. So I think by having all of those kinds of thoughts, it also takes some of the pressure off. It's almost like, really, what's there to be scared about? I'm probably not going to get this job anyway. I just want to go in there and have a good time. So anyhow, maybe that will be of some help to you with dealing with nervousness as well at the auditions. So the questions for the casting director, you know, as I had mentioned, your relationship, any words you don't understand, any words that you can't pronounce. What you never want to ask a casting director is, so how do you want me to do this? I mean, that's your job. You know, as an actor, that is your job to come up with an idea. It might not be the right one. It might be taking the character in a direction that the writers and directors and producers don't think is right for the part, and that's okay. As long as you look right for the part and you give an interesting, believable read, you make the words sound conversational. If there's another actor involved, you're listening to the other actor very carefully, and you bring some life to this person. If all those things are clicking, then hopefully that will get you a callback. Okay, getting photos taken free is just another way of trying to market yourself. And I talked about this earlier, going to photography classes as well as going to ASMP. Okay, so now what are you going to be doing? You've got to do your homework assignment. And remember, you've got to be very honest with that approach. Really think of situations where you're going to be able to find ads that are right for you. You know, let your ego go. Get rid of the fantasies. If you feel the need to do fantasy shots, there are always photographers that you can go to for that. And you can hang those things up all over the place. But just, you know, understand that those kinds of shots probably are not going to get you work. Then the next step is you definitely want to get some photos taken, you know, however you're going to do it. So you've done your homework assignment, go out and get some photos taken. And like I said earlier, don't go out and spend a lot of money printing things up right now. What you really want to be doing is just showing these agents some of the photos, and it's easiest if you can show them all on one photo. I mean, don't go into an agent's office with a CD or a DVD with 3,000 photos and say, hey, so which ones do you think look good? Sit down with the photographer, maybe choose a number of different shots. And just speaking about photographers, when I did my last headshot session, this guy Joe Henson, he had a great idea, and he offered this to me, and I think it'd be helpful for you guys to know about this too. The wardrobe is so crucial. What he said was, look, if you're going to go out and try to find some wardrobe to bring, whether it's from your closet or you're going to go out and purchase some items, why don't you take a picture of them and email them to me? And then I can let you know which ones I think would look best on you, with the backgrounds that I have, with the lighting, with your skin tones, with your eye color, and with the type of work you're trying to get, which was great, because one of the things that I was thinking about using was bringing a sports coat. And so instead of going out and having to get tons of sports coats, I shot a couple that I had, and I said, do you think these will work? And he told me which two that he really liked, and those are the ones that I brought up. So it was just another great way of preparing before the session. So then you're going to go out and try to find an agent. Sometimes people ask, well, can I have more than one agent? And yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily a yes or no kind of answer. It's a complicated question, and there could be multiple answers. So here are some of my ideas for that. If you are just getting started, if you are a full-time student, if you have a full-time job and you're doing this on a part-time basis, and a lot of, just so you know, I mean, a lot of people that I know in the business are not trying to do this on a full-time basis. Most of the people that I know have other things going on in their lives, and they do this as a extracurricular activity, as a hobby. I mean, certainly, look, there are people like me, there are plenty of people that do this, for their livelihood, but I would say certainly most of the people don't. They have other sources of income, which in some ways makes life a lot easier, because that way you're not dependent on booking a job in order to pay your mortgage, pay your kids' college education, pay for rent, pay for food. So sometimes that can be really helpful. But if you've got a lot of other things going on in your life and you're just getting started, trying to multi-list with a number of agents in your area, it gets very, very complicated, especially if it's a market where, maybe the 2 or 3 local agents all pretty much get the same phone calls. And it's a tough situation where if all of a sudden, you're trying to be represented by 3 different agents, all in your area, and they all submit you for a job, for a casting. A couple of things can happen. I know some casting directors will simply throw all of those headshots out because they don't want to have to try to figure out, well, which agent should I call? Because if I call one agent, the other 2 agents are going to be upset with me. So what they say is, look, find one agent to submit you to me, and that's who I will contact, and bring you in with. So partially so you're not getting lots of conflicts with local agents, but also, you probably don't have the time to spread yourself out so much. So you want to interview, the 3 or 2 agents in your area. And also remember this, when you are interviewing an agent, you're going in there, you are interviewing the agent just as much as that agent is interviewing you. And there are a number of things that I would do when I'm sitting down with a new agent. One of them would be, I would ask, like I said earlier, how do you see me being cast? and see what kind of response you get. You can also, hopefully you will have done some research prior to meeting with an agent. Go to their website and see if they, if they have a, about us kind of thing, so you can learn about what kinds of jobs they get with their talent. Do they do TV commercials? Is it only fashion? Is it commercial modeling? Do they do radio? Do they do training films? Find out what they do ahead of time. And then maybe you could even ask them there, um, by the way, do you have any headshots or composite sheets of models in my category whose work you really respect? And you can take a look at some of those people. Um, Also, ask basic questions of, do you ask for a contract? And even if they give you a contract, contracts can be a little bit tricky. You could have an exclusive contract, but does that mean that you are only exclusive to that area, or are you exclusive to the world with that agent? So, like for instance, let's say you're living in Pittsburgh, and you have an exclusive contract with an agent in Pittsburgh. Are you allowed to work with an agent in Ohio? It's a different market, or would they say, no, everything's got to go through me? So, I would ask, and if you are given a contract, one of the things that I would want to know about is, how do you dissolve the contract? That's kind of tricky. I mean, you want to make sure if things aren't working out, how do you get out of it? Now, I'm not an attorney, and so I'm not giving you legal advice. I've heard this from some attorneys that in certain basic contracts, even if you have an exclusive contract, if you haven't earned any money with an agent, you've made absolutely $0 with the agent, and let's say it's a 2-year contract, and a year has gone by and you haven't gotten any work, and you want to get out of it, what I've been told, and once again, I want to make this as a very clear disclaimer, I'm not giving you legal advice. What I've been told is that even if the agent wanted to sue you for breach of contract, there are no grounds for any kind of loss for the agent. So there would be no money involved with that, because they haven't lost anything, because they haven't earned anything with you. So anyhow, but that's something that you might even want to ask the agent. I think it's really, really important to have a good line of communication with the agent and be upfront and just say, hey, I just want to find out, you're asking me to sign the contract. I like this agency. I definitely would like to, give you guys a shot. What exactly is the policy? If you're not happy with me, I'm not happy with you. How do we go about, ending things? And see what the agent has to say. I mean, look, it's not necessarily the most, positive way of going into a marriage of, hey, you're talking to your wife. Well, hey, look, if it doesn't work out, we can always get divorced here, and let's start talking about that. But, I think, especially if you are signing something, I think that's actually very, very helpful, to know about. And certainly you want to know from the agent, what do they expect from you? I can tell you that some of the major complaints that I've heard from agents is that, one, their talent is unreachable. Sometimes, look, if you are a student or you're at work and you're in the middle of stuff, you're not necessarily going to start taking phone calls from an agent about an audition, a booking, or a go-see, at that particular moment. But when you have a break, whether it's during lunch, whether it's after school, you've got to check in with your phone, and you've got to have the courtesy to call the agent back, even if it's just to let the agent know you're not available. Because sometimes the agent only has a limited amount of people that they can send to an audition. And so if you don't get back in touch with them, they're not necessarily going to call the next person. So make sure you call them back and let them know. The other thing too is your outgoing message. And I know that sounds, in some ways it sounds like a silly thing, but I've heard this from a number of agents. Let's say they get a phone call and there's a go-see the next day. And they are allowed, this photographer is saying that this agent can send 25 people to this particular go-see. Then they might have to call literally 75, 80, 90 people because there's so many people who just aren't available, aren't reachable, aren't returning phone calls. And one of the complaints that I've heard is sometimes people get very creative in their outgoing message. And they might do monologues, they're playing songs, they're telling jokes, they're, playing music. I mean, they're doing all kinds of things. And, imagine being in the agent's office and they're making millions of phone calls at the last minute. They're frantic. It's the end of the day. And there's this long-winded outgoing message. They're probably going to hang up and go to the next person. So what I do is, I just have something very short, sweet, to the point. Actually, I even put my schedule. Hi, this is Aaron Marcus. I've got a booking next Tuesday. I'm also booked out on Friday, whatever that date is. You can leave your name, area code, and phone number and a brief message, or you can text or email me here as well. Bingo, and that's it. And so that way people know what my schedule is, because if there's something going on a day they know I'm booked out, then they can hang up and go to the next person. And also it's short enough that they can wait till the end. And as special as we certainly like to think that we are, fact of the matter is a lot of people can do our job. That might be different, but a lot of people can fill the position. So make it easy for the agent. They appreciate it, and once again, those are the kinds of people they want to work with. So anyhow, so those are some of the key things that I would ask of the agent. And the other thing too is, how do they want you to stay in touch with them? I think that's a really important question. Just real quickly about websites. Agents' websites. Years ago, and especially in the modeling world, a lot of agents would create modeling books. And we would actually pay to be in the agent's book. And those fees drastically change from market to market. There were some areas I was paying like $75 or $100 or $50 to be in a book. There was an agency in New York. Unfortunately, they're no longer in business. At that time, I thought they were the best commercial modeling agency in New York. It was called McDonald Richards. It was a really, really good agency. And there were a few really good agencies. I happen to really like them. And their fee was $650 to be in their book, it's a fortune, $650 to be in their book. And you would have like 4 or 5 photos in there. But it was a great investment because those books were sent out to every major advertising agency, all the big photographers in the area. And I used to get a lot of direct bookings just from my photos in that book. And at $250 an hour, typically one booking, I've already paid for the book. And it was great. Matter of fact, there was one year I took out 2 pages just because I have such a wide variety of looks and expressions, and spent a fortune. And once again, it was a great investment. Well, nobody does books anymore. It's much cheaper, it's faster, it's easier, and also it pays better for the agent to have a website. Or sometimes agents use certain services, whether it's 800 Casting, people use Actors Access, or there are different places where there's Frontier Casting, where basically talent will place their photos on there and agents use it. But for the agents that have their own website, we have to pay to be on the website. And that fee can vary anywhere from $50 up to like $300 a year, to be on the agent's website. I would say the average is probably about $150, anywhere between $100 and $150 for most agencies to be on their website. And it's really important to be on an agent's website because that's how they send out JPEGs to people of your photos. And sometimes people, photographers and people from ad agencies will come to the agent's website and actually, look at the photos. And depending on how sophisticated the website is, sometimes they can do a search and sort things out. They're looking for, males between these ages, and, all the different headshots will pop up, and then maybe you click on a headshot and then a bunch of other shots will show up. So if an agent is offering you to be on their website. If it's a, it's a good agent, if it's a local agent, then it can be very, very helpful to you. And that is really the only time that you would ever pay an agent any upfront money that has nothing to do with a booking, and that is to be on their website. But you do have to be, careful with agents, and I'm sure it's the same in any kind of business. There are scams out there, and some of these people are very, very talented. And some of them aren't even necessarily scams, but just not all that helpful. I mean, if there is a company that's based in one part of the country, and you are going to be, one of literally, 200,000 models on their website, and they're saying, yeah, you could be seen by people around the world. Yeah, I mean, you could be. I mean, they're not saying anything that's not true, but the chances of being seen when you're one of a mob scene, or the chances of them knowing about the local jobs in your area, probably aren't as good as if you're working with a local agent. So, I would never say don't make that kind of investment, but if finances are an issue, I would be wise in where you sink your money. And just speaking of scams, there is something that I experienced a couple of times recently, and I want to make sure you guys know about this, because this is fairly new, and it's very interesting. It's very smart, and I am sure they fooled a lot of people with this. I got an email from someone who claimed to be in the UK, and they saw my photos. They didn't say where, saw my photos, and I would be perfect as the spokesperson for a product that was going to be running on billboards throughout Europe. So it felt like a scam to me from the first email, but I just wanted to play it out, and I wanted to see how they did this. I was curious. And so what they told me was they were going to pay me, and I can't remember the exact numbers. It was something like $5,000 for this particular ad. I said, okay, great. I said, so let's talk about flights and dates and things like that. And they said, oh, no. What we do is, because our photographer travels around the world, because we shoot different people in different areas, our photographer is going to come to you. And so I'm emailing back, and I'm going, oh, okay. Meanwhile, I know this thing smells really bad. But once again, I was fascinated. I wanted to see how exactly they were going to, try to rip me off. So here's how they do it. And I thought it was a really interesting twist on normal scams. What they were going to do is this. The photographer and the makeup artist are coming to me. And because they are traveling so much, what will make it easiest for this company is they're going to send me a check. I can't remember, it was like $10,000. And if I would, when the photographer and makeup artist come, just, cash the check and pay the photographer and the makeup artist their $5,000 for doing the shoot. And I would be able to keep my $5,000 for the ad. So once again, I'm thinking, okay, so how does this scam work? Here's how it works. They'll send me a check for $10,000, and it'll be written off of it looks like a regular check from a U.S. bank. And I'll take it to my bank and I'll cash it. And I'll get, the $5,000, and I'll keep the other $5,000 in the, checking account. When the makeup artist and photographer show up, I will hand them the $5,000 in cash. We'll do a crazy photo shoot. And then a couple of days after that, I'm going to get a notice from my bank saying that the check was fraudulent, that the check wasn't good. So now I am out $5,000. Bank is going to say, you owe us $5,000 because the check was bad, and those people are gone. That's how they do it. So you've got to be very, very careful. And if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You need to really trust your instincts. If something doesn't quite feel right to you, listen to your gut, trust your intuition. And also, if you do have contacts in the industry, shoot them an email and say, what do you think about this? And once again, if you want to send something to me, I'm more than happy to, listen to what you have to say. Okay, So you are going to begin marketing yourself. And who are you going to market yourself to? You're going to market yourself to photographers, art and creative directors at advertising agencies. Let them know the kinds of projects you want to work on. And remember, the cover letter, you're going to set it up. Either you're going to send it through an agent where they can contact the agent, or send it through yourself. If you want to handle it yourself, if you happen to get the booking, that's great. Or if you want to still send it through an agent. I've spoken with some people, and you have to do a little detective work for this, but they've contacted me and said, there was a specific product or company that they wanted to do an ad for. And so what I, helped explain to them is to do this. Contact the company. Go directly to the company and ask them who does their advertising. And then you can simply, find out and then start following up that way. There's also something called the Red Book, R-E-D, and I also have that in my book, How to Become a Successful Commercial Model. And it's a reference book that larger libraries will have, and it consists of 2 different books. And what's really neat is, if you think that you should be doing an ad for a certain computer, you look up that computer in one of the books that's part of the Red Book, and it'll give you all kinds of information about that company, and it'll tell you who the advertising agency is. And then you do a cross-reference to the other part of the Red Book, and it'll give you the name of the advertising agency and all the contacts there. So that's another way of trying to market yourself, and it's time-consuming. You have to kind of be a detective, but that can be very helpful. And the other thing just to keep in mind while you're going through this whole process is take your time. There's no rush. The important thing is to have fun with the process. And I'm not saying that there aren't going to be times maybe when things are frustrating, where things are hard, where things are slow. Let's say you start working with an agent, and I do this, somewhat regularly, because I have lots of agents in different markets, where if I haven't heard from an agent for a while, instead of calling up the agent or sending an email to the agent saying, hey, I've been with you for 6 months, or for 2 years, I've only gotten a couple of phone calls, what's going on here? I'm not hearing from you, or you're not submitting. Instead of calling with that kind of attitude and blaming the agent and, in some ways inferring that the agent is not doing their job, what I do is this. I'll contact the agent, whichever way they want me to contact them, and I'll say, look, I've been with you for a year, really haven't heard very much. I wanted to ask if I could set up a meeting with you, and what I will ask them at the meeting is, what can I do to try to get more work going? Instead of blaming the agent, why aren't you doing this for me? I ask and I say, look, you tell me, what can I do? And I've heard a variety of things from agents. Sometimes I've had agents tell me, I've been submitting you. I've sent out your headshot a bunch of times. People just haven't been wanting to see you. In which case, and I just say, well, great. Okay, thanks. I mean, that's all I can ask for. The agent can't get me work. All you can ask of your agent is to submit you for the jobs, and then once things happen, then there's other parts of their job description. But that's what their main job is, to submit you for things. The other thing that I've heard sometimes is there just hasn't been much work in your category, in this particular area. In which case, I understand that, that's fine. Sometimes the agent, could say to you, I've got your photos, but honestly, I just don't think they're great. I don't think they sell you well. The market has changed a little bit. I think it's really time to put together new photos. In which case, that's really very helpful information to hear as well. And so anyhow, that's something else that you want to do with an agent if you find that work just isn't happening for you. And so, most importantly, you've got to really take your time. Don't rush into it. Do your research. Try out all different kinds of things. And, this really can be a very, very enjoyable industry. Let me just head on over to the next slide. just to kind of wind things up here, I know we were going to end at 5, and then I was going to take questions if there were any questions at the end. I mean, the very last thing that I wanted to say uh, is that what you guys are doing is really incredible. I mean, most people that I run into and they ask, "Oh, what do you do?" Well, I'm an actor in a commercial. Really, and they start getting real excited and they start saying, "Oh yeah, something I always wanted to do, and I never really looked into it before, and because I couldn't then, and I really want to do it, and how do I get?" But these are the people that never take it any further than dream world for them. And these are people that will think about it, they'll dream about it, they'll fantasize about it, and every time they watch a movie, every time they see a TV commercial, every time they see an ad in a magazine or a television show, it's kind of gnawing at them a little bit. And they're always wondering, I wonder what if? I wonder if this is something that I could have done. I wonder if this is something that would have been of interest to me. And people will give you all kinds of excuses and all kinds of reasons why they couldn't, why they didn't. What it really comes down to is they didn't have the courage that you guys have. Look, you could walk out of the workshop today and say, I really learned a lot about the industry, and I just don't think it's something I want to pursue. And I'd say, congratulations. That's wonderful, because you had this idea, you checked into it, you spent an entire day, listening to me talk and get all this information, and you've learned it's not for you, and you can put it to bed and move on to something else. And you'll find something else that you are passionate about, because to me, that's how you have success. I mean, certainly you've got to have some skills, but I found that the people that have real success, not only just in this business, but in any business, they're not necessarily the best in their field. They're not necessarily the brightest, the smartest, the best looking, the best. It's the people who feel passionate about what they do. And when you feel the passion, you will work unbelievably hard and do whatever you need to do to have success. And success is whatever that means to you. There are lots of people who, if they book 1 or 2 jobs a year, 3 jobs a year, and they can see themselves in a magazine ad or in a newspaper, to them that's success. And I agree. That can be incredible. Other people, they want to, achieve to higher levels, and that's fine too. But you are the ones who are really going out and doing this. You're investing your time. You invested money into this. And you're going about this in such a smart way, and it's not just because it's me, but you're being able to learn exactly how to do this kind of work. And I'm saving you the years and years and years of guesswork and trial and error that most people run into. And that's why most people drop out of the business. So I just want to say I've got so much respect for what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing. I realize this is hard work. Along with how much fun it also is work. And so I just wanted to end, by saying congratulations, and just a couple little things at the very end, just to kind of wind things up. Please don't forget to join my Facebook page, the fan page, so we can communicate there. Share it with other people that you know, so we can really build this incredible community of people helping each other. If you're not registered on my website, once again, all the stuff is free. Just put in your email address and the state you live in. Follow me on Twitter if you do have a Twitter account. And if you haven't gotten my book, How to Become a Successful Commercial Model, it's just a great reference for you. You can get that at howtomodel.com, and you'll get more. Actually, you get a couple other things with that. And or if you're interested in doing a private consultation at some point, just email me and we'll set it up, and that way I can focus more on your specific needs and look at your photos and look at your resumes and talk, really gear things specifically for you and your market and what you would like to accomplish. So I've said everything that I wanted to say here. Certainly I can open things up if there are any questions, and if not, like I mentioned earlier, feel free to email me at any time. I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions that you have. And I'd like to thank Joel really for just doing an incredible job here for moderating things today. And I thought this was a really, really fun day, and I hope it was good for you as well. So, are there any questions at all?
Yeah, we do have some questions, Aaron. And just to
Okay.
remind people, if you have a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand by clicking on the little hand icon to the left of your control panel. Or if you'd like to type your question in, you don't want to raise your hand or you don't have a microphone set up, feel free to type in your question in the little question box, and I'll read it to Aaron live on the air, and we can get your questions addressed. Okay, so let's start back with Jermaine. Uh, Jermaine asks, "How do you make sure you're getting paid what you're worth?" And he's talking about in the realm of movies and acting, knowing how much to ask for, how much to get paid. Aaron, do you want to address
Yeah.
that?
Sure. Well, see, that's one of the things. If you are a member of the Screen Actors Guild, that's all taken care of for you. You'll know. I mean, unless you're getting above scale, it's very clear, how much you should be getting for every job. So here's something you could do. Let's say you're not a member of the Screen Actors Guild. Why don't you do this? If you go to SAG.org, and what you can do is, and you don't have to be a member to do this, you can find out what is scale for a feature film. What is scale for a training film? What is scale for a TV commercial? And you can use that as a guide. Now, you might be thinking, well, I don't know if I can really ask quite that much. Or you might be thinking, you know what, I'm going to ask more than that. But that, I think, would be really a very, very helpful guide to you to know how much to ask. And as far as how much you're worth, I think you got to think about it a little bit differently because, look, I think I'm worth millions of dollars for people when I do a TV commercial, but that's not necessarily what I'm going to get paid. So what it really comes down to is what kind of budget do people have? If you're doing a student film, they probably have no money, in which case you're going to do this, this film absolutely free, which I would still recommend doing because it will give you some really good experience, and probably just as important, you'll get a copy of your work. And that's how you build up your acting reel so that at some point when you're trying to find representation with an agent for films or with television, and they ask you, well, let me see your reel, then you'll have something to show them. So I think that would be a great way to do it, because in the non-union world, there are no basic guidelines as to how much you should be paid. So base it on SAG wages.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Great question, Jermaine. Appreciate it. So, Irving has a question. And this kind of wraps into what you were just talking about, Aaron, with the potential scam that you were going through. Irving actually asked this question a little bit before that story, but I think it's still an important question. I have a question about a possible scam. I know an actor who is SAG, and he indicated that for $500 he can get me SAG eligible because talent agents will not hire non-union actors. Is this something that's real? I know SAG is about $1,800 to join. Is he talking about a voucher? He's guaranteeing me this will work. What is he talking about? $500 he can get him into SAG.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, let me tell you how it works in order to join the Screen Actors Guild, and then I think that will answer your question. There are a variety of ways that you can become a member. And one of the ways, one way is you audition for a SAG project and you get cast. And then you will become, it's called a must join, because you did the job, and then they're going to need for you to join. Sometimes they'll have a stipulation. If you book the job, you've got to join the Screen Actors Guild. So that's one simple way. There's another way. You are working as a non-union extra. Let me just stick with feature films because it's simple. And you're walking down the street, and either in this particular scene, and either the director or maybe the first assistant director, they're called ADs, or some other staff person, production, they walk over to you and for whatever reason, they give you a word or a line to say to one of the actors, one of the principal actors in this movie. For some reason, that makes it an important scene. By you given a word to say, that automatically upgrades you from being a non-union extra to a day player. You will be given a contract that is called a Taft-Hartley. And basically what this will say is you can work on as many non-union acting jobs as you'd like for the next 30 days. However, after those 30 days, if you want to do another union job, you must join the union. That's a must join. So that's another way that you can join the Screen Actors Guild. Another way, you can become a member of AFTRA. And like I mentioned before, you can just, pay your money and become a member of AFTRA. You have to have one job, and I'm pretty sure it's a principal job, not just an extra job, in AFTRA. And because AFTRA is considered a sister union to the Screen Actors Guild, they will allow you to join the Screen Actors Guild simply because you are a member of a sister union. You've paid, your, all your fees, and you've had one job. Here's the other way, and here's the last way. And they're talking about possibly getting rid of this, but as of now, it's still in effect. It's doing extra work. And here's how it works. When a film comes to town, the Screen Actors Guild wants the producers to hire as many SAG extras as possible. The producers want to hire as many non-union extras as possible because it's cheaper for them to go that route. So if the extras casting director, let's say, can bring in 20 union extras this day, and they've only filled 17 slots, and they have slots for 3 more union extras. If you tell the casting director, I want to join the union, can you bring me in as a union extra? If there are openings, she can, and you will get a voucher. And if you do that 3 times, then you can join the Screen Actors Guild. So now, once again, you can't just do 3 days of extra work on a feature film. It has to be union extra work. So you were brought in as a union member, you get paid union wages, you jump into the meal line ahead of the non-union extras for that day, and you're treated like every other union extra on the set. So when somebody says to you that if you pay them $500 and they can guarantee that you are a must join, I honestly don't know how they're doing that, because that does not sound like any of the criteria I've ever heard about as far as being able to join the union.
If you have a question, once again, you can raise your
Okay.
hand by using the little hand icon to the left of the control panel, or type it into the area in the question area. Aaron, we've got another question here from Donna, kind of as a follow-up to that. And just, I guess, maybe just reiterate this. And we've got several other questions, so just so you know. How long or how many jobs should I get before I join a union? Or should I join right at the start? So maybe just...
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I really don't even know that you can put a specific number on it. I would say it's really more of your feeling of being prepared. If you've done, a number of student films, you've auditioned for a number of non-union commercials, and you feel comfortable, you know what you're doing, you've been booking some of these things, and that you are living in an area where there is union work, then yeah, I think that would be helpful, because like I said earlier, you'll have more protection and you'll make more money when you do a union job. So that's really up to the individual as to when they feel prepared to do that. But just remember, once you do join the union, then you're not going to be doing any non-union work unless you go the path of financial core.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. So Joan has a question about voiceover work. She says, before Aaron wraps up, can you ask him to talk about voiceover work and offer any tips that might be different than what he shared about regular acting and modeling work? Thanks again, Joan.
Sure. Now, voiceover work, and just so that everybody understands what that means, those are going to be either radio commercials. Sometimes it can be TV commercials, and you're the voiceover in the background. It can be a narration. You're watching a National Geographic film, and there's somebody doing all the narration there. So it kind of, or it could even be when you're put on hold, on a telephone and you hear somebody talking to you. That's voiceover. It could be animation. It could be computer games. I mean, there are a lot of different areas that people can go into as far as voice work goes. I even forgot, audiobooks. So many people are downloading audiobooks today. That's another form of voiceover work. Just so you know, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody, I think it's the most difficult area to have real success in, only because typically you'll find that there are handfuls of people in each market that get the majority of the work. It's difficult work. You've got to be able to make the story sound right. There are no facial expressions. There's no body language. It's all in your voice. And it's great work. I mean, I don't get that much, maybe, a couple a year. But it's very, very interesting and challenging work. But here's what I would suggest doing. You need to put together a demo. It's like actors put together a demo reel showing their acting work. Well, voiceover people need to put together a voiceover reel, or MP3 in today's time period. And what you need to be able to do is this. Figure out, what are your strengths? Look, there are some people who put together voiceover demos who have this concept of they can do everything. They can be the announcer, the voice of God. They can be the nerd. They can do the character voices and all. Maybe they can. I find that most of the time people aren't that capable. Now, like people on The Simpsons, those people are unbelievable. I mean, each one of those people are able to do like 16 or is it 18 distinctive voices. They just have amazing range and incredible talents. What I found for myself is I don't have a wide range for that. I know what my skills are, what my strength is for voiceover work. I'm the regular guy, it's kind of like with the acting, the guy that you like, somebody who is convincing, somebody who's believable, somebody that you trust. That's the kind of stuff I get. I'm not the announcer. I don't have that kind of voice. So first, you need to figure that out. What areas are going to be right for you. Depending on the area that you live in, if you email me, I'd be more than happy to give you the names of some people that I know who actually will do demos for people in the voiceover world, some very experienced people. The way that I got started was this. There's a publication called Communication Arts, and you can go online and find them. And I'm assuming they still do this. They had a best of issue. Don't go out and buy it because it's very expensive. But what I did was I took a look at it, and it would have the best radio commercials for the year, award-winning radio spots. And so I flipped through a bunch of them, and when I found the radio spots that seemed to match my voice, that's what I used for my demo. And I went into a studio, and I recorded 3 or 4 different radio spots that really seemed to fit my character. And I wanted to make sure that I used radio spots that were really well written, because you don't want to just grab TV commercials and try to use those as demos, or even newspaper articles or newspaper ads and try to translate those into voiceover. Get voiceover work. And I also didn't want to use anything that was too noticeable, ones that everybody has already heard. I tried to get some that seemed a little bit more obscure. And basically, I put together a demo, had some music in the background, and that's how I put together my first demo. So that's what I would suggest doing. Finding really good copy that fits the strength of your voice. Like I said, if you want to try to find some voiceover people who can coach you, who can help you put together a demo, unless maybe you've got the equipment on your computer and you can do it yourself. But anyhow, that's a great way to get started, and then take that demo, which should really probably only be a minute long. And some people, they've got various categories. They might have radio commercials, they might have narrations, political spots, maybe animation reels, however you want to do it. But start off with something pretty basic, maybe just radio commercials, and then kind of work your way up from there. And let some of the agents hear them and see what they have to say. Maybe you could even put something together very inexpensively on your own, let the agents hear it, kind of like with the comp cards. Set up a sample composite sheet, we'll set up a sample demo reel or a voiceover reel, let some people hear it, and if they like it, then go into a studio and make it sound real polished.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aaron. If you have a follow-up question for that, by the way, Joan, go ahead and type that in if you have any more specifics on that, because I know that you had sent me a private message earlier asking if we were going to cover that, and I asked you to talk about it in the question and answer. So I want to make sure we get your question answered, so if you have any more about that, make sure you ask it. Dia, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly, asked a question. You spoke about managers and agents. Do I need both? Why is there a manager job if they do the same thing as agents?
Well, do you absolutely need one? Not necessarily, depending on where you live, but actually they do very different things. The manager does not negotiate for you. The manager does not submit you for jobs they're not supposed to. What the manager does, and it's very different than the agent. First of all, the manager will only work with a few people. A small management company, they might have 15 people that they manage. An agent could have 1,000 people in their files. So the manager is really, they're kind of like great parents. They're really looking out for each one of the people that they are managing. You're not going to have a manager manage a number of different people in the same category. So the manager is looking out for for the bigger picture. They're looking out for your career, not every individual little job. And so it's very helpful, like I was saying earlier, especially if you are thinking about moving to a major market, whether it's New York or Los Angeles, and you do not have an agent. It would be very helpful to get started with a manager, because that manager will also connect you with an agent. The managers are always affiliating themselves with certain agents who, and then the agent is the one who will submit you for the job, negotiate for you. If it's a modeling job, make sure that you get paid. The manager has nothing to do with that. So they really do two very, very different jobs. There are some agents that are small enough that maybe, only handle, a small amount of people that are more hands-on, but typically they're not really looking out for the bigger picture of your career. They're more interested in trying to get you work, today.
Dia says I pronounced her name correctly, which is awesome. So we have a question about child acting. Is child acting any different than adult acting?
Well, I mean, look, great acting is great acting, whether you're a child or an adult.
I think the question is
Probably the,
specifically about getting work as a child actor, not, I'm sorry,
oh,
not the actual
oh,
acting
okay.
process.
Okay. As far as getting work, no, it is a little bit different. There are certain ages that where there are fewer jobs. If you are a teen, it's a tough time period for many reasons, but also in the acting world, there just aren't as many jobs available. Now, once again, I'm not trying to discourage people who are teens because there is work out there, just not as much. And quite often you're going to find that, especially for teens, sometimes they're really like in that in between teenage. So, when you're younger, there's more work. And when you're starting to hit, 17, 16, 17, 18, 19, there's more work. But, you know, from, 11 to 14, 15, sometimes it is tough because there just aren't as many opportunities. But the neat thing is, even if there aren't as many opportunities as there will be when you get older, for those who have a real interest and really want to, learn from this and get better at it, keep pursuing it so that way, as you outgrow that certain stage in your life, and all of a sudden, now you're 16, 17, 18, and there are a lot more roles available for you, you're going to have a lot more experience, because you've done some of this work before. And, the other areas that people should consider in the theater world, especially if you're living in an area where maybe there's not a lot of film or TV or commercial work, I would try to do as much theater as you can. And especially if you are a teen, I would be contacting all the local colleges and universities in the areas, because when they're putting on plays, sometimes they might need a teenager that they're not casting from the students. And the other thing too is you might want to also check out film departments at different colleges. And this holds true for any age, but especially if there's a master's program, or even if not, students have to shoot films and they need talent, they need actors. And so if you are able to let people know that you are available and you'd be interested in looking at a script, that a student wrote and will be shooting, then, if you're a teenager and there's not as much work in the area, well, that might be incredible for you, especially if it's a movie, that deals with teens. So that would be another great way to try to get work. But it is true. I mean, there are certain ages that are tougher than others, just like, for people in my age category, well, I'm not the young dad and I'm not the grandfather. I'm kind of like in that little bit of an in-between. I'm not saying there isn't work for me, but, if I were 29 or 30, there'd be a whole lot more work available.
Okay, great, thanks. And John, just for your awareness, Aaron has created an entire program, a day-long workshop for minors, kids, teenagers, students, or children, how to get work as a child actor or model. When we say child, we mean under the age of 18, so you're a minor. And there's great information for parents in that product. You can find that over at howtomodel.com if you're interested in more information about that specifically. Irving has a question. What if and this appears to be the last question, unless anyone else has any more questions. If you do, oh wait, we've got some more coming here. I'm sorry. We got more than this. What if a union actor decides to do a non-union movie? Irving wants to know.
Yeah, well, that could be a problem, because it's an if the union finds out, then you can get booted out of the union. You'll be brought up to a board and they will decide what they want to do. I don't know how it works as far as if you've already had money set aside for retirement, how that would work. I'm not really sure. I've never been in that situation and don't plan to be in that situation. But and look, I'm not naive enough to think that there aren't people who do that. I mean, I've gotten phone calls from agents sometimes who have said, hey, look, there's an industrial film, it's non-union, And I'd say, well, but I'm in the union, so I can't do it. No, no, no. There are other union actors doing it. It's not for publication. Nobody else is going to know. It's just in-house. And I'm thinking, if I don't have the union approval for a job, I'm not going to play with it. It's just not how I like to do my business. So, I know that there are people that have run into some problems who have been caught doing non-union projects. And I think there are a variety of things that could take place. I'm not sure specifically what they will do. And I think it depends on what the project is, maybe how often they've done it, whether they're a repeat offender. But I'm pretty sure you can have your union card taken away from you. And one other little comment about that, something you might want to try if you are in a situation where you're a union member, and let's say it's a student film and it's non-union, they haven't filed any papers, filled out any paperwork with the union. What you can always try to do is try to turn it into a union job. And what some people don't realize is that it doesn't take that much for somebody to turn a non-union project into a union project. As a matter of fact, there's a workshop that is given in the DC area, which is specifically that, how to turn a non-union job into a union job, and it's supplied by some union members. And so I found that at least in the DC branch of the Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA, they do everything they possibly can to allow actors to work. Now, they're not going to break union rules, but there are some exceptions to the rule. There's something called like one time only, where they can fill out paperwork and you can hire union talent for this one project and that's it. So basically, if you are in that situation, I would speak with the union. I would speak with the producer or director who's ever putting this project together, and really see if you can do this in a way that's above board, you're not breaking union rules, and it makes everybody happy.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's also a provision for independent or student films in the SAG rules for people that want to do
Right,
that.
and there are contracts that are written specifically for movies under certain budgets and for student films and things like. I mean, I did a student film, and I was not paid anything, and they filled out the forms with the union, and basically the whole idea was, if the movie was distributed and the movie was beginning to make money, then I would get paid. And up until that point, I wasn't getting paid anything. And so, really, I mean, just talk to people, at the Screen Actors Guild and see if you can work something out.
Okay. Jermaine just kind of follows up with that question, and I think we addressed this a little earlier, but you might want to just say one more word about it, Aaron. Don't take a lot of time. But what if a union actor does international work like in Bollywood? I think Jermaine's asked that before about doing international work,
Right.
possibly in India. Can they do it with a SAG card if they're a SAG member? Is that going to cause them problems if they want to work in Hollywood and Bollywood, for example? And that might be something you want to ask the union about, but you might want to address that too, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, that would be a great question. If you are a member of the Screen Actors Guild and you want to do something in India, you're doing a Bollywood project, I would just contact the Screen Actors Guild, and ask them. Um, you've got a SAG card, you just got this project. It's not, it's one thing if it's an American project that is shooting over there, then it would definitely fall under the Screen Actors Guild. But if it's a project that is produced in India, by their producers, it has nothing to do with the United States, I would just ask, and they'll give you, a straight up answer. They might say, look, we prefer that you didn't do it, only because there's no backing, or they might say absolutely not, or they might say, hey, look, that's a part of the world that we have no influence over, and it's up to you. So I would just ask the Screen Actors Guild.
Great. Donna asks, do the headshots that I take have to be shot by a professional, or can I do it myself?
Well, and when you say yourself, I'm assuming you're meaning, a friend or somebody. I'm assuming you're not meeting like standing there with a camera and shooting yourself like that, because that would, I think, would be pretty tough to make it look decent. Look, does it have to be done by a professional headshot photographer? No. Does it have to look great? Yes. So if you know somebody that is a very good photographer and you know what you need, you know what the ingredients are, you know what kind of expressions, you know what kind of background, and you can, once again, it's kind of like with the commercial shots, you can produce these things. And just get a great shooter, somebody who knows lighting, somebody who knows how to put the right lights in your eyes to make them really interesting and jump out at people. Sure, I would try it with anybody. The only thing is, I mean, sometimes there are people that shoot weddings and things like that, and they consider themselves great photographers, and maybe they are for that particular venue, but they might not really understand how to put together a great headshot. But especially if you know somebody and they're not charging you anything, I would say try it. The worst thing that can happen is you show it to an agent and they don't like it. I would show it to a number of agents because, like, every agent's going to have a different opinion. But that's what I would do. No, I mean, you don't absolutely 100% have to hire a specialized headshot photographer, because there are some headshot photographers that don't necessarily give you the results that you need also, and you've spent a lot of money doing that. So I would experiment, give it a shot and see what happens.
Excellent. Thanks for the question, Donna. So Jermaine asked another question, and I think this is actually a really good question, Aaron. When getting paid as an actor or model, how does that affect when filing your taxes? Do I need to get an accountant? And do I set up as a sole proprietor or small business when it comes to being an actor or model? Are you considered a freelancer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, okay. Well, let me give you the parts of that question that I can answer. First of all, if you are a member of the Screen Actors Guild or you're a member of AFTRA, any of those union jobs that you do, money is already taken out for taxes. That's part of it being a union job. And I don't want to go into all the technical details, but there's a company called a paymaster, and they're the ones that take out all the taxes for you. So you don't have to worry about that end of it as far as setting aside the money. For modeling jobs, and this is a great question, for modeling jobs, taxes are not taken out of your check. And it is essential that you speak to either an accountant or some kind of financial advisor who can tell you exactly how much money you need to set aside in order to cover your, whether it's city, state, federal taxes, because I've known a number of very successful commercial models who didn't have a very strong business sense, and they were getting checks for $500, for $2,000, for $600, and it's easy to get those checks and spend it. And then all of a sudden, when tax time comes around, you owe a lot of money. Social Security, none of that money was set aside. So it is really, really important that you speak with somebody so that for every $100 that you earn, this is how much you should be setting aside to make sure you can pay all of your taxes. And as far as setting, well, first of all, we are freelancers. We are self-employed. Even when you are signed with an agent, they are not your employer. We are always considered self-employed. That's why if you're not getting work, you can't file unemployment with your agent. You don't work for them. You are a freelancer. So, but as far as setting up a sole proprietorship and all that stuff, that's something I would sit down with a financial advisor with and have them explain to you. Part of that, I think, would be based on, how much you earn. But once you do have things set up, you can also start deducting money for tax purposes. I mean, when you are, taking acting classes, that's a tax deduction. well, you know what, maybe I should get into this stuff because I'm not a CPA. Speak to your financial advisor about that. But absolutely, I think that's a great question and a great idea for everybody. And even like, even if you're doing this for your child, there are things that can be deducted. But you have to speak with an advisor. I'm not sure if there's a certain amount that you have to earn in order to be able to take a loss or take deductions, but absolutely, you're going to run this like a business.
Yeah. I think it's a really key point, Aaron. What you just said. I was going to mention that the principle here is that if you're serious about this, and you get a few jobs here and there, and you're dabbling at it, that's one thing. But if you're turning this into a business, thinking about it as a business and getting some advice on how to set it up as a business is important because it could turn into a really, really powerful career for some people on the call.
And something, I was just going to jump in there, Joel, and just say that there, in case you're trying to find the right people to talk with, once again, depending on your community, I mean, there might be like an actor center. There could be the Screen Actors Guild. There could be other acting organizations in the area that you can contact and maybe ask them, are there any guest speakers that you have who are in the financial business or the accounting business that have some knowledge of actors? And you might find people that do things pro bono, or you can just take a workshop. Maybe some of these places have free workshops, and that would be really invaluable.
Okay. Well, unless we get some more questions, I believe we're down to our last question here. Some more might roll in. If you want to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand or type it in. That's no problem. Aaron will stay as long as you need him to answer every single question people ask. This comes from Joan. She says, I am in Northern Virginia, and I also want to hear Aaron's take on the availability of commercial modeling and acting work in the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia region.
Yeah, it's a good market. It was.
This is your market, right, Aaron? You live in Baltimore. This is your market.
Yeah, it's one of my markets. Absolutely. That ad that I did for the Virginia Lottery was shot in Richmond, Virginia. And as a matter of fact, I would highly recommend that you find an agency in the Richmond area because that's very drivable for you. It's probably, depending on where you live, you could be anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours away from Richmond, which is nice because that puts you both into the DC, Richmond, and potentially Baltimore market, depending on how far you want to travel. Look, it's not New York, it's not Chicago, it's not LA, it's not Miami, but it's a good market, especially to get started in. And the key thing is putting together the right photos and then having the agents submit you for the right jobs, making sure you're on their websites, if they have websites, and also trying to market yourself. But that is a good market, partially also because of all the associations that are based in the area, not only for commercial modeling, but also for training films. I mentioned those earlier too. They're called industrial films, educational films. A lot of those associations put together training films because they are trying to connect themselves with politicians in DC. So just in general, it's a good market to be in. And I spent probably the first 2 years exclusively in the Northern Virginia, Richmond, DC, and Baltimore area, just getting a tremendous amount of experience before I start heading north. And then in my third year, I started hitting more like Philly and New Jersey. And then it was really in my fourth year when I felt like I was ready. That's when I decided to hit New York. But I would get started right in the area where you're in because it's a very, very good market.
Okay. She just wanted to clarify she lives in Fairfax County.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure where that is, but I know it's in that region.
Yep, Northern Virginia.
All right, Aaron. Well, I don't see any more questions that came in. Can you kind of just leave us with a final oomph, what do we do next?
Yeah. Guys, have a great time pursuing this stuff. Remember, do not take anything personally. Booking the job, not booking the job is not any kind of statement about who you are as a human being. a couple other just real quick things for those of you who go on and have like real success in the industry. If you're starring in a movie or starring in a television show, hey, could you get me a couple of days of work on your project? I'd really appreciate that. You know how to get a hold of me. And please, if you do have this real success, just remember we're all human beings. I've been on enough sets and I've seen enough famous people do things that I thought was just kind of crazy stuff and mean-spirited. And, we're all human beings, no better, no worse. Some people are more successful than others. Some people are wealthier than others. But just treat everybody in the way that you would like to be treated. And don't forget, especially like on the fan page, spend some time there and share information. Talk about your experience here. Hopefully it was a good one for you. And, we can build conversations there, and we can, really continue to have people from literally around the world helping each other, really try to do our best in the acting and commercial modeling world. It's been a really, really fun day for me. And, I hope it's been really good for you as well.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everybody. I'll be sending out a link with the replay information by Tuesday, if not before then, so you can watch these in case you missed any portion of them. And please share this share the idea of these workshops with friends. We'd love to have another workshop soon, where you can bring some friends and family on board to learn more about this as well. If you have anybody that would be interested in that, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot those directly to Aaron at howtomodel.com. And thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we will all talk to you very soon. Thanks, Aaron.
See ya. Thank you. Bye.